Okay, today's shir is sponsored the Ilui Nishmas Yaakov Yitzchak ben Chaim. Tavtzadi Zayin Gimel. Afilu Sefek Seda Aser. So even if something is possibly was captured, it's Aser. Kegon Metsudot Chaya Dagim Ve'ovo Shahayu Ferusos Me'erev Yom Tov Ulamachar Motzei Behem Asurim. So we don't know. Now, many hold that you were talking about Seder only midarabanan over here. That's the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. So you might say Safek darabanan lakula. So here you set up the traps before Yom Tov started, and now you see it caught, but you don't know if it was caught on Yom Tov or if it was caught when you set it up before Yom Tov. We still say it's aser, but it's a davar sheyesh lo matirin. All you have to do is wait. So normally, even though we would say safek darabanan lakula, but we don't say, usually we don't apply safek darabanan if davar sheyesh lo matirin. All you have to do is just wait till as soon as the night is over, it's going to be matir. Right? You don't have to wait. There's no kanas bichdei shiyasu. It's not like you ask someone to do it. Ela in kein yadua shenitzodu miba'od yom. But if there's a way for you to know that for sure it was captured miba'od yom, before Yom Tov started, then for sure it's matir. Ve'im matzah hametzudos mekulkalos mibe'erev Yom Tov be'yadua sheme'erev Yom Tov nitzadu. And I don't know exact metzias, but if you can look at the trap and you can tell based on the way it's, based on, I guess, what time you saw it in the evening or the morning and the way it's configured right now, you can tell it was done ahead of time. Otherwise, it's an issue of it wasn't prepared. If it only was captured on Yom Tov, then it's muksa because it wasn't prepared to use before before Yom Tov. So, okay. So that's the issue. Dalet. Safek Muchan Mutter be Yom Tov Sheni, which is Yom Tov Sheni Shagalios, Mishum Dahave Sfek Sveka. So, the first Safek were a machmer for the first day Yom Tov. But for the second day, we say the second day might not even be, we treat it like it might not even be Yom Tov. And therefore, you can say a Sfek Sveka, it's almost really a third Safek. And here, the Shulchan Aruch paskins, it's 100% mutter on the second day. In other words, you don't know if it was captured Erev Yom Tov or on Yom Tov. So if it's on the second day, for sure he's Meiko. By Poskei Ashkenaz, it is a machlokas. If you
wait, there's a tzad that was trapped on Erev Yom Tov, or the suffix is between on Yom Tov Rishon and Sheni?
I think it's either way. Either way, I think he would hold it's mutter. And Poskei Ashkenaz it's a machlokas. In other words, do they treat the second day Yom Tov Galios, we keep Yom Tov Sheni mitzad minhag, but really it became a takana from Chazal that because of minhag, and we might go back. Question is, do you treat that day as a minhag, do you look at it as a day of safek or a day of vadai? Once there is the minhag, do you look at it as safek or vadai? Mishnah Berurah says one should be machmer unless it's hefsed gadol.
You have to say that the suffix is from Erev Yom Tov 2 days ago.
Why?
Where's the suffix?
No, you don't know when it was captured.
Right,
you know, let's say
it's that it was captured Erev Yom Tov, which was 2 days ago.
No, it could be it was captured on the first day of Yom Tov.
That's the problem.
And Mimanavshach, the first day is either Chol and the second day is Yom Tov, or this. No. One suffix is today is Chol, and therefore there's no problem, there's no issue of muksa whatsoever. And yesterday was Yom Tov, or yesterday was Chol, and then that was Chol, and today is Yom Tov. And the other suffix is you don't know if it was captured today or yesterday. In other words, if you know for sure it was done yesterday, then it's for sure okay. Because whatever is asr on one day is not asr to the next day. That's from Yom Tov to Yom Tov. Okay. If you know for sure it was captured on the first day of Yom Tov, then Miman Avshach, it's 100% mutter today. You don't even need this sfek sveka. It's one sfek, and both Ashkenazim and Sephardim agree. Whether it's The suffix is it may have been captured on the second day Yontif itself. Okay, we'll talk about it afterwards. All right, it's like the case of an egg that was laid. If it's from one day to another, everyone agrees it's mutter. It's only that day that's asr, except for Rosh Hashanah. So, hey, im sachar amat hamayim b'kanisa u'biyetzia. So you have a stream, some kind of a canal of water, and you close it off. Sachar means you close it off, and the entrance and then the end. So it becomes a narrow area. Let's say it's up to 6 tfachim wide. That's what most of the poskim point out. So it's up to 6 tfachim wide, but it could be longer, of course. But it's cut off on either end, on both ends. So therefore, if you cut it off Erev Yom Tov, so this way it's set aside to be used on Yom Tov, mutar likach mimena dagim b'Yom Tov dahavelei nitzodin ve'omdin. It becomes a very narrow, small area, and it's considered already trapped, and it's already meant, you have in mind, to use it on Yom Tov, so it's no longer muksa, and it's not missing Seder. So therefore, me'achar she'amat hamayim hi tzara, since it's very narrow, ve'enan yecholim lihishamet, and there's nowhere for them to run or to hide, and it's easy to catch. So you can basically just reach in almost and catch it. So, right. So it's very easy to catch, and since it's so easy to catch, it happens to be a machlokas, if you could even catch it only with your hand, or even use a net. Mishnah Berurah says good to be machmer when possible, same as others, but okay. And Mishnah Berurah is even more makel if it's in a container, even if it's bigger, wider than 6 tfachim. He says you could even catch it with a net, and you don't even have to use your hand. Okay, that's okay. Let's go to Vav. Most of these cases are not so lamaisa nowadays. Most of us are not shechting and getting fresh fish on Yantiv. Vav avazim v'tarnagolim v'yonim shababayit. Now you have chickens, birds who live in your house, or they're right next to your house, but you're raising them, and they're always coming back to you. Oh, shebachatzar omdim la'achila, or they're right by your chatzar, right outside, and you raise them. They're always coming back to you. So therefore, and we're assuming mistama, they are used for. We're talking about chickens and birds that are used for eating. So we're assuming that's what your kavana is. Mutar or stam kavana is. And therefore, you're allowed to eat them. That's already considered muchan memela. Mutar letsudan. You're allowed to trap them. Ve'enan srichin zimun. Zimun means setting them aside so that you say that they're being used for Yom Tov, for eating. So, since that's what their stomach used for and available for, therefore you don't have to specify again. It's already memela done for you. So they're not muksa. And you're even allowed to set up traps and go get them in the fields, a complete seder. Because they always come back to your home. They live in your home or next to your home. They're part of where you live, and they're always coming back. And so therefore, right, and you feed them, you take care of them. So therefore, by definition, the halacha says, they're as if they're already trapped. So even if you have to go and set up traps and do whatever you need to do to capture them outside in the fields, if you b'shus sarabim, and right, there's no carrying issues b'shus sarabim on Yom Tov, so that's even mutter to do. Okay. And this is if you're going to grab them and use them for the purposes of Simchas Yom Tov. That's when it's for sure. Okay? No issues of muksa. Okay. Alright. Mm-hmm. Okay. Some point out it's best to set aside, at least in your mind, which ones you're going to use. Because what happens otherwise, these are already mutter, they're in your house, so you don't have to worry about it. The mailer, they're automatically set aside to use. But as a good chumrah, one should choose which ones they're going to use. Because otherwise you have the issue of you're going to go to there in the morning when you want to eat, and you're going to pick up one and say, I don't like this so much, I'm going to pick up a different one, oh, that's not as good, I want a bigger one, smaller one, this, that, and you're going to end up picking a bunch of them up until you pick the one you want, and it's an issue of tircha yasera. Okay. Zayin. Sha'ar kol chaya va'of shemechusarim tzeda. So you have animals that are, what's it called? You're not raising them in your home, and they're not always staying in your home. So, and they're in a big area, and you have to capture them. Shetzarich lomar havei mitzuda unetzadenu. So it's the type of an animal, or bird, or chicken, the type of situation where you're going to have to say to your friend, hey, let's go capture them. It's not like you're just going to reach in your hand and pick it out. So in that case, asur letzudan v'litein lifnei mezonos. So you're not allowed to capture them, and you're not allowed to feed them. V'kol she'ein mechusarim tzeda, but anything that's not missing tzeda, in other words, all you have to do is take one little dash, a little run, or you bend down and it's easy to pick up. So then that's not mechusar tzeda whatsoever, and that's okay. So then mutar letzudam velitein lifneihem mezono. So then you're allowed to capture them. Basically, it means you're just allowed to. We're talking about a case where it's very easy to capture them. It takes little effort, and you'll most likely be successful. And then you can also feed them because we're not afraid that you're going to end up coming to pick it up. Chet. Ayot v'shekenu b'fardes. V'yaldu bo ofarim v'adayin k'tanim she'enon tzrichim tzeda. So you have these animals, chayos. So they are in your pardes. Some kind of it's a gated field where you still have to go capture them.
Not necessarily your pardes.
Okay, lav dafka yours. And you do have to still capture them. They're outdoors, but they're in a fence. And so the babies, they can't, or the chicks, or calves, whatever they're called, they're pups, fawns, right? Depends which animal, fawns. There you go. So therefore, it's really easy to capture, right? They can walk a little bit, but they can't really move that much. So then,
they were born before Yom Tov?
Yeah, they're born before. So there's no issues. Right, so they're not muksa, and we're talking about when they and their parents are set aside for food. So then mutarim below zimun. So in this case, the fawns, they're not missing seder. They're right there. All you have to do is pick them up. So therefore, and they're stomach for eating. So therefore, they're not. You're allowed to. V'davka befardes samuch la'ir betoch shivim ama v'datehu alehu. Right? That's what I just said. We're talking about ones that are next to you are stomach for eating. Otherwise, you'd have to do a special zimun for them to set them aside. Now, just to point out, when it says shivim ama. So you look at the tour. He says shivim ama. You look at the Beis Yosef. He says not exactly 70. It's 70 and 2/3. That's what we're all used to from Tchumi. There's a case in Taf Kuf Aleph where the tour mentions and the Beis Yosef. There, we're going to get there. It's a case of it's in a karpef, and we're talking about 74. So here the Mishnah Berurah says 74. I'll leave it as it's Arachian. You can explain to me later, but that's okay. So here is 70 in a mashu at least. V'ha'em, and the mother, the deer or whatever we're talking about, this case of a chaya, afilu zimun ein mo'il la kevan shemuchuseret seda. So here the mother, even if you set it aside, it won't help because it's in a big pardes and you still have to capture. So since it's missing tzeda, by definition, it's also going to be muksa because it's not set aside. You're not, if you know it's missing tzeda, you know you're not going to be, even though it's omeret la'achila, it's still going to be muksa because it's not muchan or muzuman for you. Alright. Tet. Yonei shovach v'yonei aliyah. V'tziporim shekinu b'tipuchim. So here you have dove coats. So here you have these houses little sheds for birds, and you have in them perush klei cheres habenuyim b'ktalim l'kanim behem ha'ofos. So you have some kind of these, ceramic little things made for them to build their nests on them. Okay, so asurin letzudan. So, and this is a case where these are
literal pigeonholes.
Pigeonholes. Thank you. Pigeonholes. So here you have they're basically wild birds. They're not yours. They come in for a few days, or a day, or a night, or a week, whatever it is, and the door is open, and they can come and go as they want freely. So these are not yours, and they're not guaranteed to come back to you. So we say like this: Asur letzudan, you're not allowed to capture them, because it could even be a chayav chatas. Lefichach ein zimun mo'il lehem. So therefore, setting them aside is not going to help you because they're mechusar tzeda. So it depends on the case. What kind of doves we're talking about? They're yours. They're always staying with you. They come and they go. It's open, not open. Okay. V'hani mile bigedolim. Now we're talking about the big ones, right? Some birds. Aval b'ktanim she'enam mafrichim. But the little chicks that can't fly away, and they walk around, but that's about it. Mutar letzudan, aval zimun tzrichim. So in this case, again, it really depends on which case you're talking about. Here we're talking about they're not mechusar tzeda because you can just pick them up. They can't fly anywhere. So they're little chicks who are not ready to fly yet. So those are not mechusar tzeda.
So why do we have a difference between this one and...
It just depends on what the case is. It just depends on what the case is. Right, so you wanted to ask, it's not the same case as the Ofarim in Seif Chet. You're saying it is or isn't the same?
It's not the same, because the bird can walk further than a form.
Okay. The bird can walk farther than the... But here he says you are allowed to capture them, and aval zimun tzrichim, but you need to set them aside. Okay. Either because they can walk further, or you didn't have it in mind. It could be just you didn't have them in mind. Also, whatever the case is. It has to always be stama la'achila. I mean, the principle is similar. It's simple and it goes across the board. It has to be where it's omed la'achila, or you set them aside, and you have kavana that you have kavana that you will probably eat it, and shecht it, and it has to be where it's already caught, and you don't have to go out of your way to catch it. As long as you fill those principles, then, okay, the rest are just examples. Now, Keitzad hu hazimun, how do you set it aside? Verbal, picking it up, just thinking. So let's see. Omer zevazeh ani notel lamachar. So you say, this bird I'm going to eat tomorrow. You have to specify exactly which one you're going to eat. That's assuming you're not going to eat all of them. We'll see as we keep reading. The assumption is, in this case, is you have, let's say, 10 birds, and you're going to serve 2 for your family, whatever the case is. So then you have to specify which ones you're going to eat tomorrow. Ve'ein sarich l'nanam. Right? Beit Shammai says you have to pick them up. Here we don't pasuk in that way, so all you have to do is just look at it, even from far, and it doesn't even have to be verbal. And generally we always assume it's better, but it doesn't have to be. Okay. Aval be'omer mikan ani notel lamachar lo sagi. But if you just look at a group of chickens, and you say, okay, from that group I'm going to pick, from this area, or from this little cage I'm going to take, that's not good enough. Normally we would say it would be good enough, because basically it's an issue of borer. You're only going to eat 2. You don't have any kavanah to eat the other 8, if that's the case. Whatever the case is, you only have kavanah to eat some of them. And so what you're essentially doing is you're basically saying, I'm going to decide tomorrow. So often we say, Anin Isser Derabanan, is Yesh Breira. But here we don't, because what's going to happen is you're going to go, and the Chazal are also doing that in this case, is you're going to go pick up one and say, I don't want this one. You put it down. I'm going to pick up another one. Oh, I don't want this one either, and you're going to put it down. and you're going to end up picking up extra birds that you didn't need. And every one that you picked up that you didn't eat is, lamafreya, you find out, was muksa. Because you only the ones that you set aside to eat are not muksa, and all the other ones are muksa. So that's why it's important to be very specific which ones you choose. Yud Aleph is a continuation. Im zimen kol hashovach ve'eno tzarich el lezug. You say, you know what? The whole dovecote I'm going to set aside. But you only need 2 of them. Eno mo'il. It doesn't work. Because of what we just explained. You have to specify exactly which one you're going to eat. Haga, v'imhu efshar sheitzarech kol hashovach. But let's say it's reasonable, you might eat all of them. You just don't know. Yachol lahazmin kol hashovach ulamachanot hamashetzarich. So then, since you might eat all of them, you're allowed to set aside all of them, and then you take whatever you want afterwards. Because it's not the first case when we learned. It's because you're basically you're essentially setting aside 2, and you're not setting aside 8. But if you know that there's a reasonable chance you might eat all 10, then you basically set aside all of them, and there's no issue of Breira Lemafreya. Some of them were no good, because they were all set aside to be mezuman as opposed to muksa in a negative way. Hope that was clear. Okay, Yud Beis. Let's do a bit more. Yud Beis, Ziman Shnayim Matar Shlosha. So now what happens if you set aside 2 of them, right? And then you come back in the morning and you find 3. Like you picked up 2, you put them in one area, or in one empty dovecote or some cage or whatever it is, and then 3 shows up in the morning. So there's an extra one. And normally you would say echad betrei is batal barov. Here we don't say that. Oh, let's keep reading. Oh, zimen shkorim ulavanim. You set aside bikinim muvdalim v'mechitza mata shkorim imkom lavanim ulavim imkom shkorim. You set aside, here are some black ones, here are some white ones, or one or the other, whatever you set aside, and then it gets flipped on you. And it's not exactly what you set aside. So, asurin ela imkein makiran. So everything is asur, unless you recognize for sure this is the one that you chose. Right? Obviously, if you know this is the black one and things get moved around, if you recognize exactly, or you put a little, tag, or you put some marker on it, whatever you do to it to know, then it's okay. What? Yeah, as long as you recognize it. It's hard for me to recognize it without putting some marker on it. But whatever works for you, that's, as long as you recognize it's yours, then it's fine. Because otherwise we're afraid that other ones got mixed in. It depends on the case again. Sometimes you could be afraid, if it's 2 and then 3 showed up, it could be all 3 are also new. But anyways, even if you know it's only 2, Mishnah Berurah points out, we also don't say it's batal barov, because Orach Chaim, in general, we say are chashiv, and we often don't say batal barov with Orach Chaim, with live animals, and it's a davar sheishal matirin. So that's 2 reasons why we often won't say that. And obviously we're talking about where the extra one that shows up is in a similar status to the first 2. If the first 2 that you set aside have a rope attached to it, a leash, or whatever it is, whatever the right word is, anyways, and then you see the third one, it doesn't have. So you're allowed to assume, probably you set aside 2 with the rope, and here, this one doesn't have one, and obviously this is the one that wandered in. So you ought to use a little bit of common sense as well also. But if they're all roped, or none of them are roped, then that's already called a mixture. Alright, we'll stop here.